How good is the ACC? For the past 4 football seasons, the ACC has been arguably the worst conference. Saved by the Pac-12 the past couple seasons, but over the past 4 seasons, it could be argued that the ACC is the worst conference in college football. Shouldn't be that way. Too much talent in the region, too much talent in the recruiting footprint. But you know what? This is all about 2022, not what has happened in the past. But of course, we've got to take the past as our blueprint for what's going to happen here in the future. So anybody that's going to tell me that the ACC is going to be a top-notch conference and going to have to be reckoned with in 2022, I can buy that for a number of reasons. I can buy that. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, and welcome to our ACC preview featuring your comments, your questions, and your calls right here at the Voice of College Football. I will leave the link down in the description second here in just a second. But welcome in on a Thursday night, 6 o'clock Eastern time. And speaking of the ACC, we featured the ACC throughout the day here at the Voice of College Football. Sam Hartman, unfortunately, the star quarterback at Wake Forest, will be out indefinitely. We covered that with Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football. Please check out that video. And we will talk a little bit more about Sam Hartman in just a few minutes. Also, we just concluded a Florida State live show, so please check out that live stream over on the FSU channel here at the Voice of College Football. And many of you not aware that we've got team channels all over the place. All over the place, team channels. Please check them out. And directly after this show, we transition right into Miami Hurricanes Live. So it's a big ACC day, for better or worse. Florida State Miami shows, Sam Hartman injury, and now our ACC preview here at the Voice of College Football. Lock it in. We've got ACC channels as well. Miami, Florida State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and Clemson. And simulcasting on all those channels. So welcome in. Welcome in. All right. Let me drop the link in the chat and then give you a brief overview of what I think is important in the ACC this season. So the link to join the show is in the chat. Whether you're joining on the main channel here, over on the Clemson channel, Miami channel, Florida State, Virginia Tech, wherever you are, we are here. All right. Let's start from the top. And the top is not Pitt. The top is not Wake Forest. They won the divisions last year, but the top is still, everyone would agree, the ACC will run through Clemson, South Carolina, and Dabo Swinney. 2 new coordinators, though. Dabo Swinney has built a dynasty, a bona fide college football elite program, powerhouse, one of the greatest programs in the history of college football. Yes, I will debate that with anyone. One of the great programs in the history of college football. Over the past 7 or 8, 9, 10 seasons, he's built it on stability. It's been built on consistency, having a coaching staff that has stuck around. Now Tony Alford, who's been with the program there at Clemson since, 2014. He's off to coach Virginia. And Brent Venables, of course, the mastermind on defense since the Orange Bowl collapse. And then that brought him in from Oklahoma. Well, he's back at Oklahoma now as the head coach. So new offensive coordinator, Brandon Streeter. New defensive coordinator, Wes Goodwin. Everyone wants to know about DJ Uiagalelei. Is he going to be the DJ of 2 games against BC and Notre Dame? throwing for 340 and 440 in 2020, or the 2021 quarterback who was, sorry, DJ, awful. Every game, just about every game, awful. And like we talked about this week with Jason Priester, did the Georgia game just wreck him and the entire offense for the season? Maybe. But complete off season to reset, get healthy. Had a bad shoulder, bad knee. DJ fighting for his job over the 5-star Cade Klubnik, which many people are likening this situation to the 2018 situation involving, of course, Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant. And I've made those comparisons too. I think there are some apt comparisons there, some comparisons between what happened in 2018 and what could transpire and is forming this offseason heading into 22. But there are also some, as I've laid out, some very distinct qualities to each situation that don't apply. The defensive line on this Clemson defense is going to remind us of vintage 2018. Arguably the greatest defensive line in the history of the game, both from the standpoint of how they delivered as collegiate players, where they were drafted, and now starting their NFL careers. That 2018 Clemson group, remarkable. You got Tyler Davis, Brian Bresee, Miles Murphy. Oh my goodness. Xavier Thomas, KJ Henry along that defensive front. Clemson is going to be special on defense. I would be shocked if they are not one of the 3 to 5 best defenses in the country. I don't know where they will rank statistically, but I mean in terms of player evaluation and getting the job done. That usually relates to a ranking. NC State is the chic pick to knock off Clemson, of course. NC State beat Clemson last year in Raleigh-Durham. They will get the return trip to Clemson, Death Valley. Devin Leary had a remarkable year. He might be the best quarterback in the conference. 35 TDs, 5 picks. Check out my quarterback rankings. I rank the top 20 quarterbacks in the nation. Check that out. Dave Doran, 17-7 his last 2 seasons. Really good North Carolina State teams. They lose the left tackle who went to the NFL, but they bring back the other 4 starters along the offensive front. And you've got Devin Carter and Thayer Thomas at wide receiver, 2 productive wide receivers back for NC State. Okay, Florida State. Florida State's going to be better. I don't know if it's going to be reflected a ton in the record. We just finished up our Florida State live show with Jason Parker and James Coleman. Check out what James Coleman said about, and he rarely predicts any kind of record, but he's been at practice every day, and he is sizing up Florida State football for us. And he had a record prediction that was rather interesting. Mike Norvell's 8-13. Jordan Travis is improving. He was such a better passer last year than he was the year before. I thought that he could not play quarterback. The way he played in 2020, throwing the ball downfield, I thought he's not a quarterback. Well, he worked at it. And now he's a decent thrower of the football. He's still a runner. That's his forte. But Florida State's caught in the quandary of, do we let Jordan Travis take off and build the offense around him and make him Superman and put it all on him? But then you question the durability. He didn't have it last year. He kept missing games. He got banged up. He has added weight to his frame to be a better and more durable player to take those hits, but they don't want to run him. So you're taking away your biggest weapon on offense to keep him on the field. That's always difficult when you've got a better runner than passer at quarterback, and that's what Florida State has in Jordan Travis. 15 TDs, 6 picks last year. This team has better bodies, strength and conditioning, than they have since 2017. That 2017 was the last Florida State team. I know they went 7-6, but that was the last Florida State team that you could look at on the field against the likes of Clemson and other top teams and say, okay, they can play with them. They played Alabama tough the first game of the season. That was the last time Florida State looked like Florida State on the field. Not in the win-loss column, but on the field And this is the closest they've been to that. Louisville's interesting. Malik Cunningham comes back, of course, 19 TDs, 6 picks. Used to be a turnover machine, and he's really improved in that regard. Tyon Evans, running back from Tennessee, comes in, and he was really impressive down the stretch for Tennessee. 6.5 yards per carry. Scott Satterfield's 10-14 his last 2 years after having the big first season, taking over for Bobby Petrino, inheriting the train wreck 2-10, 0-8 in the ACC, and taking off at 8-5 with the bowl win that first season. And Scott Satterfield, 10-14. So everything looked like it was on the downward trajectory for Louisville, if you think about it. 10-14, bad recruiting classes the last few years, lost a lot of assistant coaches. But now the recruiting has, partially due to NIL. Also, they've modernized, they reorganized and revamped, did Scott Satterfield, to his credit, their recruiting effort. So Louisville, one to watch here in 2022 as well. And oh my goodness, the other thing about Satterfield, these first 3 seasons, they have lost to Kentucky by 109 points in the 3 seasons. 0-3 against their biggest rival, and have gotten completely squashed by more than 35 points per game. Boston College is an intriguing team. Boston College pretty much wins 6 or 7 games every year, but they have not eclipsed 8 wins, have not gone 8 wins or more since 2009. Jeff Hafley's considered a tremendous coach, and he is. 3rd season, honeymoon's over. Phil Jurkovec unfortunately missed the bulk of last season, so they get off to a good start at 4-0. Then they were playing cupcakes, and Jurkovec got hurt after 2 games. Dennis Grosel was not a good quarterback, and they scored like 10 points per game in their next 4 games. They hit the skids. Jurkovec rushed back, and he wasn't the same. Now we got a healthy Phil Jurkovec, full off season. Zay Flowers, his favorite receivers, back. Boston College was strong on defense last season. 17th in the nation in 3rd down defense was Boston College. Pat Garwo, their top running back, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's back. BC, intriguing team, along with Louisville. Okay, Wake. Now let's get to Wake. That's the feel bad story. There are feel good stories. This is the feel bad story of August camp. We don't want to speculate into the situation concerning Sam Hartman. We just know he's out indefinitely, and it's a medical condition. Okay, let's just talk about the football here. He led Wake to its first ACC championship game in 15 years. They lost to Pitt, won a bowl game. And I'm not going to sell Sam Hartman as Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, but he is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the country, 10 to 20. Definitely top 10 or 15. And he might be the most valuable. He might be the most valuable player in the country. What do you think? I will say that either off the top of my head, Brennan Armstrong, Virginia quarterback, or Sam Hartman, Wake QB, most valuable quarterbacks, most valuable players in the country, and this is why. Alabama's loaded. They've got Bryce Young, but they're loaded on both sides of the ball. Ohio State's loaded. Look at any other top quarterback that's in the Hartman, Armstrong class, and their teams are loaded. They can win on defense running the ball. You know, having a quarterback that just dinks and dunks and gets to the playmakers in space. Those 2 teams, and we'll deal with Wake Forest first and foremost because obviously the injury is center stage. Hartman in the passing game are the success of the team. They played bad defense last year. Their running game was marginal. It was all about throwing the ball downfield. He threw for 39 touchdowns. Sam Hartman came within 1 touchdown of the all-time ACC record for a single season. Lamar Jackson, 51. That's how good Sam Hartman was last year. And he's gone, unfortunately. A.T. Perry's back at wide receiver, but got to get him the ball. 71 catches, 15 touchdowns. Mitch Griffiths, who has thrown all of 15 passes, is the Wake quarterback. This is a tough one to overcome. And then finally, in the Atlantic, you've got Syracuse, Dino Babers, 10-3 in 2018. They had that one aberration season. Other than that, Dino Babers, this has to be it, right? Win something, get to a bowl game. Otherwise, 19-40. Dino Babers is 15-35 in the ACC. 15-35. Garrett Schrader's back at quarterback, 23 touchdowns last year. And Sean Tucker's one of the best running backs in college football. All right, folks, shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section. Please help us build the channel. You shop Amazon anyway. Half of you do every month. Those are the stats. Half of America shops at Amazon every month. So please use the link in the description section. And I should probably post it here in the live chat. And I have posted the link, and I will get to callers in just a second. Before we will first get to the Coastal Division. Also, keep in mind that we're looking for writers. If you'd like to write for us, go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Top of the screen, write for us. It's right there. I can't find the banner, but trust me, go to voiceofcollegefootball.com if you would like to write for us. Go to the top of the screen, write for us, and you'll be in contact with me. And we got our Discord. We got to get you on the Discord. Got to get you on the Discord. That's all there is to it. The chat that you're in right now, it goes on 24/7, 365. So jump on the Discord. Do it now. Go to patreon.com. Search MarkRogersTV. Sign up for the Discord. I get you the link, which reminds me, there is a link I got to get to somebody who signed up today. I get you the link as soon as I see the email, unless it's today. As soon as I see the email, I get you the link, and you can talk college football with these knuckleheads all the time. Plus, they have after-show parties. They're going to have watch parties this season. I jump in there. On Patreon, you get my picks. Need I say more? It's a bargain. It is a true bargain. Okay, ACC Coastal Division. Let's see if we recycle these 7 winners in 7 years. So Pitt was the first to win 2 ACC Coastal Divisions, of course, this past season, and went on and won the ACC Championship. So that hadn't happened since, Florida State and Clemson have owned the ACC. So this is 2010. Was the last time the Coastal won? I think Georgia Tech. So anyway, you got Pitt. The losses are what we've discussed many times throughout the offseason. Mark Whipple at offensive coordinator. Kenny Pickett, 42 touchdown passes. Jordan Addison, arguably the best wide receiver in college football. Big losses all over the place. Okay, Keaton Slovis, probably the starter. Nick Patty still fighting for that job. It's not decided yet. Jared Wayne becomes the number 1 wide receiver. And Pitt's defense is strong. For anybody out there that thinks that Pitt's going to fall apart because of Pickett and Addison gone, they bring back 6 all-ACC performers on defense. This defense last season was 2nd in the nation in sacks, 6th against the run, one of the top interception defenses in college football, one of the best 4th down defenses in college football. Okay, Miami. TBD was phenomenal, but it is 8 games. It's not a sure thing. He's not Peyton Manning yet. 8 games for TBD. Mario Cristobal, of course, and I've made this comment a number of times. Best hire most likely best hire since Butch Davis. He's not Mark Richt. He's not as good as Mark Richt, but that was a different situation. Miami's got Zion Nelson's going to miss his first 2 games of best offensive lineman on the team, left tackle. Should be okay to come back against Texas A&M. And then the secondary at Miami, if you're paying attention to the recruiting and the early careers from some of these DBs at Miami, like Avante Williams and Cam Kitchens, and there's a slew of them. The defensive secondary at Miami is stellar. Could be special. The front 7, where's the pass rush going to come from? And Leonard Taylor showed early brilliance last season. North Carolina's got a quarterback battle between Drake May and Jacoby Criswell. 3 consecutive top 15 recruiting classes at North Carolina. Gene Chizik comes in to take over the defense and fix the Carolina defense. Virginia, Tony Alford takes over. Brennan Armstrong could have went to the NFL, but he came back because he thinks they can win. This team could win big, Virginia, if they had any semblance of defense. Their top 3 receivers come back. Billy Kemp, Keaton Thompson, and Datavian Wicks. And those 3 guys caught 209 passes last season for 3,000 yards. Virginia can light it up. If you just want to enjoy a football game, watch Virginia play. If you love passing offense. Virginia Tech, I think this is the worst Virginia Tech roster since the early days of Frank Beamer. It is. Brent Pry, I think, is a good hire by all indications at this point. And he knows Virginia Tech culture and football, the environment, the campus, everything. He was there under Bud Foster. The quarterback situation, one of the worst in the ACC. Jason Brown comes in from South Carolina. He was nothing great there. Grant Wells in from Marshall. Decent veteran quarterback. But Virginia Tech lost its top 3 receivers, top 3 running backs. Dax Hollifield is one of the best defenders in the ACC. Georgia Tech, Jeff Sims, back at quarterback for a 3rd season. 12 touchdowns, 7 picks. Jeff Collins, time to win. Jeff Collins, 9-25 in 3 seasons. You got the extended honeymoon because of the roster turnover from the triple option attack from Paul Johnson, but come on. And then finally, Duke. Didn't win a game in the conference last year. New head coach and Mike Elko. 4th consecutive year for Duke. They are starting a new quarterback. It's Jordan Moore against Riley Leonard in fall camp. Jalen Calhoun, 56 catches back for Duke on offense. And Shaka Howard, their top tackler. All right. Join the Discord. Sign up at Patreon. Mark Rogers TV. Sign up there. Patreon.com, Mark Rogers TV. We got DeAndre on the line.
What's up, Mark? How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, first off, I'm joking around with you a little bit.
Okay.
I'm the one that wrote the Sam Howell story to you.
What's Sam Howell's story?
Sam Hartman. I'm sorry, the Wake Forest quarterback. I think I said it first.
You said what first?
Remember, I sent it to you on Twitter that he was out for the year?
Okay. Yeah.
I ain't get credit for that.
Well, you weren't exactly the guy that broke the story.
Well, I'm the first one to call you about it, though. You're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then also, is the Syracuse quarterback going for the year?
I looked into Garrett Schrader. I didn't see any
I think he's going for the
Schrader.
But anyway, let's talk about Clemson.
If anybody knows that, jump in the chat. Let us know. Garrett Schrader, Syracuse.
All right. So, Dabo had a story on 247.
Yeah.
And he was talking about Cade Cutnick being farly more advanced than what Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence was. Then also, Yeah, I'm about to get into that. And then also he goes into talking about then what's my boy name? DJ Ugale. He said DJ's footwork has improved. And he said that DJ's mistakes is magnified and people are comparing him to Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. But they both play with better talent. Now, when it comes to Deshaun Watson, now the defense we ain't gonna talk about. But on offense, I don't think that Deshaun Watson had as much talent as Trevor Lawrence did his freshman year. The reason why I say that, most of the guys that played offensive line for Deshaun Watson carried over to Trevor Lawrence, and they were freshmen and sophomores. And Tyler Winfrey was an older player. Then you had who else was at receiver? Higgins and Ross. There was another guy that was at receiver, Rogers, who was pretty good too.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. So I think Trevor Lawrence might have benefited from being on a better team. And also, I don't have a problem with Trevor Lawrence, but sometimes you gotta give Brian Kelly some respect. All right. The reason why I want to point this out, yes, they got smashed by Alabama. I think Alabama beat them 24-7 in the ACC. I mean, in the
You're talking about this past year.
No, I'm talking about a couple years. And I'm getting to Kaepernick. But when I was going back to Kelly Bryant, like how Dabo said that DJ had more talent. DJ had less talent than Lawrence and
Sure.
Watson. When I'm saying this, Lawrence had more talent than all of them. And I said, got to give Brian Kelly some respect because they wouldn't have won that Texas A&M game without Brian Kelly.
You're talking about Kelly Bryant. I was lost. No, we don't know where DeAndre just left. DeAndre just left us, but he had me completely confused because he was talking about Kelly Bryant, but he was using the name Brian Kelly. I was like, what does Notre Dame have to do with this? All right, I left the video link in the chat. I will do it again, DeAndre. So please, at least spit out the same name that you're intending me to comment on, because otherwise, when you say Brian Kelly and it's Kelly Bryant, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, very good. I figured that out finally. And I still haven't yet decided when I will deliver my predictions. Either we will do a huge, enormous prediction show a couple days before the season starts, or I will continue to deliver those predictions for those teams in particular that I believe that you want to see predictions for. We will predict all the games, all the teams, I should say. Not big into predicting games. I've done that a few times. I've done that several times where I've predicted all the games. So again, join the show here at the Voice of College Football. We do have Tony Marzano jumping on the line. And folks, please, when you join the chat, please let me know who you are. Don't want to just grab a link and let people in. Please let me know who you are in the chat. Say, hey, this is Jim from Toledo.
Hey, Mark. I want your opinion analyzing it from the outside.
Yes, sir.
For you as a non-Hurricanes fan, what is a success? Not including the Texas A&M game. What is a successful season for the Hurricanes in your honest opinion?
All right. I'm not a big Hurricanes fan, huh? How do you know that?
No, I'm saying, who's your team? Who's your college team?
I'm just kidding, Tony. Are you a Miami fan, Tony?
Yes.
What is a successful season for Miami football? Okay, here it is. Basically, one thing would be that When is the last time Miami played a really good team well, competitively, not won the game? So I'm thinking, okay, last big win against a really good team would have been 2017 against,
Florida State before they went downhill.
well, I would say Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. Those games late in the season at the Hard Rock Stadium. Yeah, Florida State. Florida State, yeah, would be another good example. Okay. Since then, who's the best team they've beaten?
My God. We've lost close games to good teams, but we've never beaten anybody.
Really?
Yeah, we've
Well,
lost close games to.
Really? I don't even know if Miami's been losing close games against good teams.
Michigan State against Mel Tucker.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. We did not think Michigan State was a good team at the time, but they did turn out to be a really good team. Okay. So
Okay.
anyway, point being that there's been a lot of games like Clemson a couple times, like
we got blown up by LSU.
Alabama, LSU, etc., that have not turned out not just not wins, but not competitive. So I would like to see Miami be competitive in every game. So even if they lose to Texas A&M and Clemson, the two most likely teams that they're going to lose to, that they're competitive in those games. Okay, so that's first.
Okay.
And I know that that doesn't equal a record, and people are looking for record predictions and record being everything. But I think it's more important to show that they can play with Clemson, play with Texas A&M. Okay, no more than one letdown during the season, not multiple lose to Georgia Tech, lose to Virginia Tech, lose to somebody else that you shouldn't lose to. There's usually 2 or 3 of those games per season.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe give you one during the season, and that, if you add it all up, that looks like a 9-3 season.
9-3 for me, a successful season for the Hurricanes, because Clemson is looking for their starting quarterback. Really, their spring camp has been all about who's going to be their starting quarterback. So they're still looking for their quarterback after Trevor Lawrence left. So that could be a winnable game. Texas A&M, we have to go to College Station. I think College Station is more dangerous than going to Death Valley, because I've seen people go there and be competitive, and even I thought didn't Pitt or someone beat them at Death Valley? I thought not last year but the year before. I thought
well, you're going back 5 years, 6 years. Pitt won in Death Valley in 2016. Yes.
Yeah, so it's been done before, so I think it's easier to win at
how
Death Valley.
How many teams have won at Texas A&M? The comparison between going to Texas A&M and winning, there's a slew of teams every year that go to Texas A&M and win versus Clemson.
No, but I'm talking about teams that are supposed to beat. I'm not talking about like Alabama or someone like that, like Georgia or someone like that, or Florida, that can have a legitimate. I'm talking about teams that are not supposed to be beating.
Okay, I get your point there, but there are still teams that go into Texas A&M, a la Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and win at Texas A&M. But
Okay.
That's not the point. I get your point.
Yeah, and let's say Van Dyke performs at the level the media is expecting him to. Do you think he becomes the favorite? Like, let's say he beats Clemson but loses to Texas A&M, but Texas A&M is a close game. Do you think he becomes maybe the favorite at the end close to the end of the season to win the Heisman? Van Dyke?
Well, you understand that's a wide open question.
Okay.
one player doesn't decide the Heisman. You'd have to tell me what every other player is doing.
No,
Is
I'm
CJ
talking about if it's all quarterbacks.
Yes,
I'm
is
talking
CJ
about
Stroud or Bryce Young, are they leading their teams to undefeated seasons and throwing for 45 or 50 touchdowns? Then Tyler Van Dyke is not winning the Heisman.
No, I'm saying if their stats are even. If the stats are even, let's say that.
No, Tyler Van Dyke is not going to win the Heisman over the Heisman favorites if they have great seasons. And also, you're asking me what other people are going to vote on. So,
No, if you were a voter yourself for the Heisman, Mark, that's what I'm asking.
yeah, I
And
should
the
have.
stats were even for all three of them.
I would vote for the player that I believe is the best player in the country.
And you think it would be one of the guys from Alabama or Ohio State, maybe?
I'd have to watch the games.
Okay.
I'd have to watch the games. But Tyler Van Dyke's phenomenal and should have a great season and should be considered. Hey, if he leads Miami to places Miami has not gone and has a great statistical season, then he should be given strong consideration for the Heisman Trophy. Yes.
Yeah, and for me, I think as a college football fan in general, I feel the Heisman, for me, is a little bit overhyped. I look at more the Davey O'Brien Trophy, which is the quarterback trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel the same way, Mark? With those two trophies, the Davey O'Brien Trophy is actually more important for the quarterback position specifically.
Well, that's a great question because I'm not an awards guy. I am not an awards guy. I used to remember who won what, and I have not paid attention to anybody winning an award for 25 years. Like aside from the Heisman, I could recite all the Heisman winners back to the 50s, but in terms of all the other major award winners, I think they're important. I'm not saying they're not important. I don't get into award presentations and ceremonies. It's like music or it's like movies. I don't need somebody to tell me who made the best movie or who produces the best music. I don't really care what anybody else has to say about it. So it's kind of similar there. I don't get into.
You think that some of these awards are becoming a popularity contest? It's becoming more of a popularity contest in the recent years instead of looking at the eye test and stuff like that. Like based on, I noticed specifically with the Heisman, I've noticed this. The Heisman has become more of a popularity contest depending on what school. Not, I understand it's based on the stats, but it's based on what school the person goes to. Normally, like Alabama, you see a lot of Alabama or Ohio State guys be competing. It's always between those two schools for the Heisman.
Well,
and stuff
Tony,
like that.
I understand that might be your perception, but give me an example of somebody who was a serious consideration for the Heisman Trophy from either one of those schools or any school that didn't earn that recognition.
I would say the guy who ended up transferring to receiver when he went to the pros for Ohio State, he played quarterback there, and he was a Heisman.
Oh, Braxton Miller.
Yeah, Braxton Miller. For me, his stats didn't really justify what he was getting hyped up to be in the Heisman race. Like his stats were.
Braxton Miller wasn't even close to winning a Heisman Trophy.
No, but there was. That's what I'm saying. Like the media before the season was hyping up. The media back then was hyping him to be that he was going to be the Heisman winner that year. Like,
well, your argument's not real consistent because he doesn't have any stats before the season starts. The media
prediction. These were predictions.
I can name you all sorts of players that have been hyped before the season that didn't go to Ohio State or Alabama. Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler. I'm just going back one season. They were the two Heisman favorites from North Carolina and Oklahoma, and they didn't live up to the billing.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant to say. Like, they 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 were hyped up at the beginning of the season by the media, but they didn't perform to the Heisman level that they were expected to. That's what I'm saying.
Braxton Miller was the offensive player of the year in the Big Ten.
Yeah, but they said he was going to win the Heisman that year, is what I'm saying, and he never did. The national media said this.
Okay, Braxton Miller was not a disappointment at Ohio State.
Disappointment to the expectations that he was supposed to. That's what I'm saying. The expectation was he was supposed to win the Heisman that year, but he never did, is what I'm saying. Like, the expectation for him specifically that year, that he was the favorite to win the Heisman that year.
Tony,
but he didn't win the Heisman.
When you talk about the expectation of winning a Heisman, understand that's something that a player cannot control. That's a vote. He didn't live up to winning the Heisman. He couldn't control winning the Heisman. He can only go out and play football.
So you think I'm looking
player of the year in the Big Ten? He led the Big Ten in touchdowns. He led an undefeated football team.
So you think I'm looking too much into that portion, maybe, Mark?
I'm not going to argue the point that certain schools are going to get more attention, but those schools have earned that attention by being dominant programs. But yeah, is it going to be more difficult for Tanner McKee at Stanford to win the Heisman Trophy this year because Stanford's not expected to do much? Probably.
Yeah.
It shouldn't,
even though he's the reason for them winning.
It shouldn't be that way, but it's been a long time since somebody won the Heisman Trophy that I felt as though. Now, I had different selections for the Heisman Trophy certain seasons. I believe Deshaun Watson should have won the 2016 Heisman Trophy, and I believe Christian McCaffrey should have won the 2015 Heisman Trophy. But the winners of the Heisman Trophy, I still believe, earned the Heisman Trophy. It's been a long time since I thought that the winner of the Heisman was just a really horrible selection.
Yeah, no, for me, and this is what the way I'm looking at it is from the perspective of a football fan as well. Like how the MVP is voted on in the NFL is based on the importance of the player to the team instead of how the team is performing and stuff like that.
Sure.
That's how I'm looking at it. Am I looking at it the wrong way for the Heisman Trophy and stuff like that? Or should the Heisman Trophy be voted on like that instead of how it's voted on currently, is what I'm asking.
Okay. Well, we will leave you with this because I don't know that everyone wants to hear more talk about the Heisman Trophy during an ACC preview, but we'll finish with this. The NFL MVP is just that. It is supposed to be the most valuable player in the NFL. The Heisman Trophy is the best player. That's not always the same classification. So Tony is checked out. We appreciate Tony being here. Let's keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. When you enter the call-in system of sorts, please go to the private chat. You should be able to see it there and leave your name and either who you root for, where you're from, so we can identify you on the screen. So please do that. The last caller, Tony, did not do that. There we go. We got a caller coming in here. We got Lee joining us.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Going to try to stick to ACC here with you.
Yeah, again, anytime I do a call-in show, I want people to have the freedom to talk about whatever they want. But this was a week in which we wanted to do a preview on each conference. So
you've got an awful lot of patience, and I appreciate that. Appreciate that about you, Mark.
People tell me that, but So
I'm a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
I have one question for you to start the conversation.
Yes.
If you had to choose one sleeper team in each division of the ACC, who would it be and why?
Sleeper team for the ACC Atlantic would be Boston College. I think Jeff Hafley's an exceptional coach. Phil Jerkovic is a tremendous quarterback, running and passing, and he's a gamer. He's a winner. He's a tough quarterback. Boston College has more weapons than most people know. Zay Flowers, Jalen Gill. As I alluded to when I ran down BC, they do bring back a lot of defense, and that defense was pretty successful stopping teams last year. They just didn't have an offense, and Jerkovic missed all the meaningful games in the ACC last year. So I think BC could surprise some people. And then in the Coastal Division, I don't consider Pitt, North Carolina, or Miami a surprise because I think they're the three that are going to battle for the division. So I would say Virginia. Virginia's got Brendan Armstrong back at quarterback. He's exceptional. He came back for a reason. He says he wants to go to an ACC championship game. He could have gone to the NFL. He's got his top 3 receivers back, and they can't be much worse on defense than they were last year.
Very nice. What do you think about because I really like what I've been reading about Louisville this offseason. I'm a big fan of Scott Satterfield. It's taken him a little while to kind of get the wheels turning there. Malik Cunningham is, I think, an exceptional athlete, but has struggled to be a consistent passer and win from the pocket. But based off what I've been hearing this offseason, they're trying to get Cunningham. They're eliminating him from using his legs in practice. Yep. I think that's going to be a big benefit. You've seen them make some strides on the recruiting trail. I don't know. I know you're not a big gambler, but just looking at kind of Vegas as a vessel to evaluate the market, you're seeing Louisville at around 6 wins. I think Louisville could eclipse that number and maybe get to that 8-9 win range if Cunningham can limit the turnovers, limit the dumb plays, and play a little bit more within the structure in the Satterfield offense.
Yeah, so when you asked me about the Atlantic sleeper, I was just about to grab Louisville. They were the first team that came to mind, but I opted for BC. We're going to pull up their schedule and look at it right now.
That season opener at Syracuse, I think, is huge too. Just kicking it off in conference against a team that I think another team that decent coach, taking some steps in the right direction last year. I think they overperformed a little bit, and a lot of people saying a lot of good things about Sean Tucker, that running back. So that should be an interesting game to start the season off. And then, if I'm not mistaken, they lost to UCF last year, didn't they?
They beat UCF.
Did they win? Okay.
That was a 42-35 game. That was the game that Dylan Gabriel, the new OU quarterback, got hurt in the last couple plays of the game, and it was a crazy game, and it was a great game, and it was like a Thursday night game, and I'll double check, but I think Louisville pulled that out.
Yeah, but just looking up and down the schedule, I mean, we can move on from Louisville soon here. UCF, I think, is a winnable game. Syracuse, a winnable game. A lot of coin toss games in conference. When you look at Florida State, you get them at Cardinal Stadium. You got to go to Chestnut Hill and to Charlottesville. But, man, I think Pitt might be a little bit overrated this year, considering the fact that I don't think Keaton Slovis has played exceptionally well since early in his college career. And obviously you're losing Mark Whipple there. The defense is going to be good. And then Addison, also another departure. But I think Louisville can kind of swing their weight around a little bit on this schedule. And has, I think that some of these games where they're probably going to be underdogs by 3 to 5 points, 3 to 6 points at Kentucky, maybe Florida State will be a 2-point spread, something like that. You see Syracuse, I think they're a 3-point favorite. If they can string together a few wins, I can see them eclipsing that 5.5, 6 number I'm seeing. In that Pitt game at Cardinal Stadium off a bye as well. So I'm gonna be looking forward to that one on October 22nd. But I like Louisville as a sleeper. Just kind of wanted to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, so I was going to go in that direction too, but again, I grabbed BC.
Hmm.
Take out James Madison. Look at that. Well, no Sam Hartman. Maybe he'll be back at that point. Hopefully,
Yep. Who
he'll-
knows?
but look at if we've got Sam Hartman in play and he's played a couple games and he's ready to roll. Look at that stretch drive. Aside from James Madison, Pitt, Wake, Clemson, NC State, Kentucky. That's rough.
That's tough. That's
So
tough.
they need early wins.
They do.
And they should be, if you look at the first 6 games of the season, they're all losable and winnable, but they should be more favored to win those games than to lose those games.
Yep.
Although, Virginia on the road, that could be a pick 'em game. Really intriguing start because they could start 6-0. Now the odds say they're going to be more in the 5-1 range. 4-2 wouldn't be the best place to be because of the stretch drive, but and obviously the conference games are more important. But yeah, I would hope that they'd be 5-1 after 6 games, and then the conference games that they close with Pitt, Wake, Clemson, NC State, split those. And beat Kentucky for the first time in forever, and beat James Madison, and you're 5-7, you're 9-3.
9-3.
That's a little strong, but it's possible.
I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I think the big thing is kind of just getting Cunningham to have that confidence by the time the bye week comes around, where if they are 5-1, he's going to be probably playing pretty well, and you can roll off that bye week, play at a good Pitt team. Hopefully, your starting quarterback has a high level of confidence, and Satterfield's got rolling the dice, calling the plays, because, if this thing goes south and they do end up, starting out 3-3 or 4-2, and then underperforming on the back half of their schedule, we could see them probably due for a coaching change. I don't think that would be the craziest thing to say. I know that it might mess up the solid recruiting that they've been doing in the 2023 class, but I still don't think that the leash on Satterfield is quite long enough for him to survive not making a bowl game. But yeah, thank you for the insight, Mark. And really enjoy the show. Do I have time for one more question, or do you want to move on?
Sure.
I've noticed that over the past few years in the Coastal Division, it's not the same teams every year, but most notably Miami and UNC come in with a lot of hype every year. I know it's a little different this year for UNC, but do you think that these teams that I would say this year it's more so Miami and Pitt in the Coastal Division are seemingly perennially overrated? Would you say that coming into this year that the market is too high on Miami and Pitt? Do you think it's just right? I like Cristobal a lot, but it's year one for him. Van Dyke, I think there might be a little more sizzle than steak there with Van Dyke. I don't want to write him off, but I watched him play last year. He's a solid player, but the sample size is just too small for him to be this highly rated. I see him, 6th or 7th name down the list on the Heisman odds. I don't know if he's quite that good. I think Miami might be a couple years away for Cristobal to get more of his guys in the building. And then Pitt, like I said, Slovis, I think, is probably a downgrade from Pickett, and I wasn't even a huge Pickett guy. And then losing Mark Whipple, I think, and Jordan Addison is a pretty big deal, and that's going to be more of a defensive kind of mindset, and they're going to win with defense. I don't think their offense is going to complement that quite as well. So I think the Coastal might be a little more wide open than some folks expect, which is why I like your Virginia pick as the kind of dark horse. I think one of those dark horse teams, whether it be Virginia or UNC maybe or Tech even, if they start playing with some confidence, they could end up showing face in the ACC championship.
Yeah, so don't join any of our Miami shows, Lee, because my goodness, they all think that Tyler Van Dyke is the best quarterback in the country and that he's going to win the Heisman.
Yeah,
they overshoot that quite a bit, and maybe he'll pull through, but that's a bit much for me. I think he's a top 10 or 15 quarterback in the country. But again,
Sure.
I said the same thing that you just said when I was going through the teams off the top of this live stream. I said small sample size. So
Yep.
small sample size, and a handful of those teams were not good teams. So he's got some really good, strong efforts against NC State and Pitt and a couple other good teams, decent teams. But he's not proven himself to be that guy. The indications early are really strong. North Carolina, so I guess they've really only let us down one season.
Mm-hmm.
Mac Brown took over. He elevated the program considerably. Then they had a second season going to the Orange Bowl, and then big things were expected last year, and they collapsed. So I don't know if they're perennially
in the Howell era, I guess they were expected to be kind of a team that was going to be competing for the ACC championship every year.
Well, again, I think they only really let down 1 year. His first year, they were coming off 5 wins in 2 seasons.
Well, then what did they do in the COVID year? What did they do in 2020?
They went to the Orange Bowl.
They did. Okay.
Yeah.
Then maybe not perennially overrated.
Really, last season that they that they let people down. North Carolina, I think they're an intriguing team because the roster's as good as Miami's. Miami's the letdown team by far in that division. If you just look at recruiting rankings, they should have won the division every year.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep. Well, it's going to be interesting. I think the Miami fans might need to hold their water for a couple of years when it comes to competing for a New Year's Six Bowl or an ACC championship. I don't think they're there quite yet. I do think that Cristobal is the best coach they've had, in a long time, as far as I can remember. And he's a Miami guy, so I expect him to kind of get that culture turned around and build from the trenches and do it the right way. But it's going to take probably a little bit longer than some of those fans may think. And I'll be interested to see what Van Dyke can do this year. But I like to play devil's advocate when a lot of these young quarterbacks, specifically with a small sample size, even someone like Caleb Williams. I know this is an ACC section, but still a guy who saw some great things from him last year, saw some not so great things, and people are acting like this guy's, undoubtedly a top 3 quarterback in college football. You can't even make an argument against it. And to me, it's like, well, the TCU game was phenomenal, but some other games were not so great, Baylor, in games like that. Yep. So anyway, thanks for your time, Mark. I'll probably try to call back one of these other times when you're doing the previews. And look forward to speaking soon.
Appreciate that. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Again, we can talk about whatever you'd like under the umbrella of college football. That's why we're here, the Voice of College Football. But it is an ACC preview, so give us what you got. We got Yakov on the line. How you doing, Yakov?
Hi, Mark. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Well, first of all, Mark, this is an ACC show. I know you've said that you could talk about anything, but I'm actually going to say something about the ACC.
Okay.
Actually, Mark, I made a little list here of, let's say, I'm going to bring us back to the ACC in a second, but let's say there became a decree from on high, thou shalt not recruit more than 150 miles from your campus.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about that, and because I was thinking about local recruiting bases, because we know if you want to win, that's among the top things you need to have.
Yep.
Talent that's proximity to your campus. And I came up with this little list. I'll finish with the ACC last, just because I want to get to the other things. If that were the case, there would be no Big Ten team on that list, in my opinion. No Big Ten. If the goal is to make, let's say, a 4-team playoff and certainly win a championship, no Big Ten team. As much as I'm an Ohio State fan, 30 years ago that would have been a different comment. Maybe even 20 years ago, but no Big Ten team, including Notre Dame, would hope to make a 4-team playoff. In SEC, I would say Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M, and maybe LSU, if they were limited to the 150 miles of the campus, could do it.
Don't underestimate Alabama. Alabama's high school football play has.
It has. Okay. Maybe I'm a couple years behind.
I'm just saying, don't underestimate it. I'm not saying that it's national championship caliber or would be sufficient against those other areas, but it's yes.
Okay, well, then you've educated me there. I know Alabama's a smaller population state, but I certainly love high school football. I would never think otherwise as far as that goes. In the Pac-12, which is about to change, of course, and this, I guess, want to update my previous comment. There actually could be two Big Ten teams that would make it. It'd be USC and UCLA. I'm just not putting them in there yet, but their local recruiting basis obviously is far greater than probably the whole Big Ten put together. In the Big 12, I would say, again, before things change with the Texas and OU moving, I would say Texas would be one, and probably Baylor and TCU. Not Texas Tech. They are too far out. They're too far from any population centers. If you look at it on the map, they're closer to New Mexico. They would, although they're in Texas, 150-mile radius even is not near any population centers. And if you want to put up the updated Big 12, I'd probably say Houston and UCF would be in there. I know they haven't been a Power 5 school, and whatever that word even means these days, or it's about to change anyway. Houston and UCF would have a great local recruiting base. I'm going to go back to the ACC now, and then I'll make an ACC comment. I would say the only teams that 150-mile radius that could make a Final Four or win a title would be Georgia Tech, Florida State, Miami, and Clemson. I wasn't sure about Clemson, but I looked, and they are only about 120 miles from Atlanta. So I'm going to put them in there as well. With this in mind, Mark, since this is a ACC program, Georgia Tech, there's no school in the ACC that has a better local recruiting base than Georgia Tech by country mile, I'd say. 50 miles, there's more talent in the Atlanta area than anyone. And Florida State, Tallahassee, is still a bit removed from some of the population centers, although there's a lot of talent in the Panhandle.
Miami?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. Miami would be there too. Atlanta and Miami are probably similar, but yeah, I guess when you say that, I have to think about that more specifically. Miami and Georgia Tech would be 1-2. I'm not sure which one will be. I mean, I have to get out a recruiting list and see where there's more talent in the Atlanta area or in South Florida, but they're very close, I'd say. With that said, of all these teams I named here, really, what teams could win a title? UCLA, currently, I haven't seen any evidence of that. Baylor and TCU, probably not, although they're pretty good. Houston and UCF, they're too new to say that. And Georgia Tech, they're nowhere near that. If we're going to speak about, since this is an ACC preview show, Mark, why is it that a team that, at the worst case scenario, has the second best recruiting base in the ACC, maybe even the best, but certainly no worse than the second best, and whatever's third is somewhat distant third. Why is it that Georgia Tech is Georgia Tech?
So let's understand that because there's some recency bias possibly there, that a lot of people are looking at Georgia Tech right now. Like, for example, when I was talking about and producing videos of who could be candidates for the SEC or the Big Ten, anytime I would mention Georgia Tech or produce their metrics in a video, I would get all sorts of comments about Georgia Tech sucks. And well, let's understand that.
And I didn't say sucks. I just said, they're not.
Sure. They've only been down for 3 years. If you look prior to 2018 in that range, Georgia Tech was probably the best football program right there with Virginia Tech in the ACC Coastal Division for a span of 10 or 15 years. They were going to as many conference championship games as anybody else. And then the easy answer would be academics, but I don't know that that's the right answer, but it's the easy answer to make. And by the way, Yakov, I just looked up the 2023 recruiting classes in the state of Alabama versus the state of California, just to give you an idea that Alabama's, again, there are you would consider California to be a prime recruiting state, correct?
I would, if no other reason than there's 28 million people there, and in Georgia, in Alabama, maybe 4 or 5 million.
Yeah, there's 29 4-stars in the state of California, and there's 19 in Alabama.
Wow, well, that's very disproportionate to their populations.
Yeah, so and that number's increasing. It's increased considerably.
I guess I need to update my. I guess I'm still thinking that Alabama has to primarily recruit out of state to be where they are, but maybe that's changing.
All right, Yakov. What else do we have?
Mark, I will. I think I'm just going to leave it with that, Mark. Another thing, maybe I could actually say. Yesterday, when I made that super chat, when I know we were talking about in the big, the Ohio State show, we were speaking. Well, you guys were speaking about the TV networks, and I sort of put in a very different topic for my super chat. I meant that only as a humorous comment, and I wasn't. I certainly understood that the flow of the conversation was not talking about a kicker substituting as a cornerback. I definitely knew that wasn't the crux of what we were getting at there. I meant that I threw a curveball there. I thought you guys would enjoy a little, humorous comment. But at the same time, I didn't mean to change the topic, and I appreciated that we were talking about TV contracts.
Yakov, we always appreciate your comments. So,
okay. Mark, I think David might be on the line. I'm looking forward to hearing from David.
Yes, David's coming up here.
Okay, I'm gonna be here and listen to David.
Good stuff. All right, Yakov. Have a nice
good
evening.
day, Mark.
We will keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. A few reminders. The Amazon links in the description section. That's all I got to say. We have collectively, this country and the world collectively been responsible for revenue at Amazon of $1.6 trillion. Update for you, the Voice of College Football, not worth $1.6 trillion. So when you shop Amazon, use the link that we provided in the description section. Amazon can afford a few bucks here and there. Those would come our way. And then also, if you want to write for us, go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com, top of the screen, write for us. And then also, we got our Discord. Get in there. Got to join the Discord. Go to Patreon, search MarkRogersTV. All right. Got David Greenshield on the line. David.
To the man that gives college football its voice, the great Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
I am doing great, David. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm getting more and more excited as the college football season approaches. I'm certainly more excited about the Buckeyes this year.
Sure.
Although, you know what, Mark, I actually, you had an interesting discussion about kind of the landscape of college football and the way things are going. And Count Me Down is, somewhat similar to yourself. I know Steve Dace has lamented about the direction of college football and the fact that it's becoming less and less regionalized, I don't know. It just seems to be becoming less and less like the college football I've known my entire life. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just have always thought of college football as regionalized. And for me to think of USC and UCLA as part of the Big Ten just sounds totally foreign to me. I just have to say that, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, for as cool as it will be on some levels, seeing Michigan play at the Rose Bowl in a regular season game, or seeing USC show up at Ohio Stadium, and all the various matchups we could make up that are going to be reality, that's going to wear off, and no longer will we have Ohio State, Michigan, and others in the Big Ten taking on the likes of USC and UCLA in the Rose Bowl for, on New Year's Day. The Rose Bowl, I don't know what's going to become of the Rose Bowl. I don't know if the Pac-12, Pac-10, a diminished Pac-10 can justify an appearance in the Rose Bowl.
Right. And, we grew up in a college football world where the whole thing was about winning the conference and going to play in Pasadena. That was college football pretty much till the late 90s, as far as, at least growing up in the Midwest. And I'm not saying that, we always had this, I think there was always this desire that was out there that we need a national champion or we need to determine a national champion, which is why, to a great extent, we got the BCS in the first place. And then everybody said, then the BCS had so many screw ups. Everybody says, well, we need a playoff, and then we get a playoff. So, and now it just seems that the way that the direction the sport is moving, and I love Ohio State, and I like a good college football game as much as the next person, but I don't know, the way as great as the sport is, the way the sport is being run is one of the things that's really got me down on the sport right now, because I just don't think it's being run the way it should be. And until they get somebody to run it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And I know you've probably lamented on that before.
Oh, many times. But so in spirit, I agree with you, but I disagree with you in that I just don't think it's being run. So the power brokers in the sport, the men like Kevin Warren and Greg Sankey, who have the most power in the sport, they're doing what their role requires them to do. They are not the commissioner of college football. They are the commissioners of the Big Ten and the SEC. So they are doing what's in the best interest of their conference. But that is not always what's healthy for college football. And so since we don't have a commissioner of college football, we don't have a governing body authority for college football, then when every entity is fighting for itself, then the stronger ones are going to win out with the larger fan bases and the more money and all of that. And then the weaker ones are going to suffer for it, and it's not going to be healthy for the sport because there's nobody looking out for the sport in its entirety.
Right. And as I've said to you, I'm fortunate to be a fan of a program that's one of the halves, in Ohio State. And, but there's also for the betterment of the sport. That's the one thing. And say what you will about the NFL, and I'm not the biggest Roger Goodell fan in the world, but at least they have a governing voice and, somebody to watch over the sport. Although there's a lot less teams, I get it. But yeah, I just wonder if this direction of the sport is just bottom line, like you said, for the betterment of the sport. Mark, kind of tied to the conversation you're having about the ACC, I don't know if you've commented on this. I haven't heard. I haven't caught your show as of late. Where do you see the ACC going? Are they just going to be left out here?
Oh, in terms of the whole, it's strange because clearly the Big Ten and the SEC have the most power, the most money, and they're both in good position. And I think basically one of two things is going to either continue to drive realignment and expansion or suppress it and kind of settle things down. And that's going to simply be the Big Ten and the SEC looking at the other, and as each one continues to make a move, that's going to prompt the other one to make a move to keep up. Or so there's going to be a punch counter punch effect, as there has been the last 2 summers, or we're going to come to a place where the Big Ten and the SEC are going to observe the field and see that there are no other candidates out there that benefit and add value to their conferences, and they'll just settle, whether that's where they currently are or at 18 or 20 or 24. And we know what candidates are out there that may add value. Notre Dame's at the top of the list. So they're either going to continue to counterpunch and then get to this place where it kind of settles. Now, the Pac-12's in a corner because they don't have a strong enough draw to go out and get any one of value. Now they can stabilize the conference by doing something similar to what the Big 12 did by just going out and supplementing with breathing, with somebody with a
Yeah.
pulse. San Diego State, Fresno State, the like, which is not going to elevate the football play, but they're good football playing schools and they fit geographically and so forth. But they've got nowhere to go. The Big 12, I believe, is in a strange place in almost a good way because its mediocrity is kind of protecting it. I don't think it's going to get picked off anymore. I think it's settled in a place where I don't think any schools in the Big 12 are impressive to the SEC or the Big 10 in value to that point for them to be picked off. So I think they've kind of stabilized and they're going to be protected by their own mediocrity of sorts. And I hate to offend any Big 12 fans calling your league mediocre, but just understand that those programs are really good solid football programs, but they just have a stack of them that have equal value. They no longer have the Texas or Oklahoma that's going to be attractive to anybody else. Now, the ACC is kind of the opposite, where it's collectively probably no better than the Big 12 and may not currently even be as good as the Big 12, but has those gems that are attractive to the SEC and maybe the Big 10. Miami's attractive for various reasons. Florida State's still attractive. Clemson, North Carolina, we even hear Georgia Tech and Virginia at times are attractive for certain reasons. So maybe the ACC's in a vulnerable position.
Yeah, I mean, the structure of this sport in the upcoming years is going to be interesting. I do think that USC is the type of program from a Big Ten perspective that can really add value. And I think Lincoln Riley will have that program heading in the right direction in the next few years. Hey, since it is an ACC show, Mark, I did want to ask you a little bit about Clemson. Yeah, I saw Clemson preseason rankings 5 or 6 right now in most preseason polls.
4 in the coaches poll.
Is that what you're seeing?
They're 4 in the coaches poll.
Just when you look at and I know you've done some Clemson Live and had some of your Clemson people on. When they look at this overall roster compared to Clemson rosters in the past, I mean, I tend to agree. I think the defensive line. You were talking about this with Steve Dace. He had mentioned he thinks this could be the best defensive line in the country, which I tend to agree. I know Brazil was a really high-rated prospect out of California. Could have a really, really good year. But when you look at this overall roster and you talk to some of your Clemson people and just reviewing it, how do you think this compares to some of their previous rosters in the past?
Well, if you just look at recruiting rankings, it's similar, but it hasn't proven to be similar. As you well know, and I think we've discussed this at times, the offensive line recruiting has been good enough to win at a high level, of course, at one of the 3 highest levels in the country for a decade, but it's not been up to par compared to all the other units on the field on both sides of the ball. The wide receiver play at Clemson, I think, is a major disappointment compared to what we grew accustomed to watching. So if you look at the current Clemson wide receivers, their recruiting rankings aren't any worse than what it was for Justin Ross and Amari Rogers and Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins, and we could go on and on, Martavis Bryant and Artavis Scott and Mike Williams, but they look nothing close to those guys. They look nothing close to those guys. And of course, the quarterback is the guy that makes it all happen. And they had 2 of the greats of the last couple decades, and now they've got a guy that was one of the worst quarterbacks in the conference last year. I don't know that he's one of the worst, but the performance was one of the worst.
Yeah, I thought he was going to build on that momentum he had off of 2020 when he had a couple good games for substituting in for Lawrence. and kind of parlay that into a good year. And I think a lot of people did. But I tend to agree with you, Mark. I was just wondering where their skill players have been, especially compared to where they've been in the past. Obviously, they peaked in 2018 when they had ATN and that great group of receivers. And I just wonder if they have anywhere close to that type of talent, on this roster.
I made the comment to our Clemson guys, and they seem to agree with me. I'm not watching Clemson every play of every game like they are, but I'm watching them play 6 or 7 games, even in a quote-unquote down year for them. I'm still tuning in when they're struggling with Boston College, and I want to see how it plays out. And, every game they played last year practically was a 17-14, 21-17 dogfight down to the end. And what I saw out of their receivers is, in a day and an age when we're used to just freakish talent at wide receiver, and especially at Clemson, seeing guys that just, when they don't take their coverage guy to the cleaners and just break free and wide open, where even when the coverage is good, they can out jump them, pluck the ball out of the air, out fight them, box them out. They're just physical freaks. All the guys that I just listed. The guys last year, those guys didn't do that. They dropped passes. They couldn't outfight the defenders. They got outworked, outfought for the ball. I saw that consistently, and they agreed with me. They said, yeah, they were not good. Oh,
yeah, there's an Ohio State fan. Believe you me, I remember Bryant Watkins.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, as a Buckeye fan, I remember Bryant and Watkins tearing us apart. So,
yeah,
I felt that pain. Hey, last thing, Mark. Hey, when's the Big Ten live show?
We're going to go, I believe we're going to do the Big Ten on Friday. So we'll have to do that at 9 Eastern after our West Virginia show. And then we're going to go with the SEC on Saturday.
Awesome. Well, I'll be back to talk some Big Ten football with you, Mark. You Take care of yourself.
Thank you, David. Good to hear from you.
Take care.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. We do have Joe on the line. Joe, please let us know where you're calling from.
Hey, Mark. I'm in Arizona. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, I guess one team that I haven't really heard come up, or maybe it did earlier, was North Carolina State. They did pretty well last year, and even their losses were on the road by a combined 4 points. I mean, they beat Clemson and a lot of the good teams there. So do you see them being able to keep that success, or are they going to take a step back this year? They have a lot of returning players, and Devin Leary's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, so they had they are the chic pick in the conference to upset and to get by Clemson and take it all. And now with Sam Hartman out for who knows how long, that even strengthens their cause there, because they, as you well know, would have gone to the ACC championship game had they been able to pull out a game against Wake that was a barn burner on the road, and they're going to have Wake at home this year. But they do have to go to Death Valley as opposed to winning that game in overtime at home. But yeah, Devin Leary, 35 TDs, 5 picks last year, arguably the best quarterback in the conference. It's going to be tough to duplicate those numbers. They lose, I can't think of his name, the left tackle.
Oh, yeah, the one that went to the Panthers, I think.
Yeah, that was a high NFL draft pick. But they bring back the rest of the starting offensive line. And Thayer Thomas and Devin Carter are big, physical, really talented wide receivers. They probably benefited from more seniors, productive seniors that could have moved on to the next level, but had that option to come back, make that decision to come back. So, yeah, they could make a really strong run.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a dark horse in that conference, and the one thing they were always lacking is the running game to assist Devin Leary. And Leary would look good when he looked good. I know his numbers were crazy, but there would be certain games where he would just make bad decisions and throw a bad interception or not convert on third down. But yeah, I don't have too much. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on North Carolina State's probability to kind of repeat last year's success or even take a step forward.
Oh, they're going to keep going forward. I think that Clemson's passing game is going to determine that division. That if Clemson's passing game is what it was last year, that North Carolina State's most likely going to win the division. But if Clemson's passing game is somewhere between Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence level and the horrible 9 TDs and 10 picks that was thrown, Clemson's throwing 9 touchdowns and 10 picks against the division with the likes of Devin Leary throwing 35 touchdown passes and Brendan Armstrong throwing 36. And it all, just they have to be able to throw the ball better, even with a great defense. Or NC State. I'm going to seriously consider picking NC State to go to the ACC championship game. And I do think, as we stand right now, they are the second best team in the conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think they were really overlooked last year, and maybe I haven't searched around enough, but I feel like they're being overlooked again this year with the other big names in the conference.
Yeah, really, I don't know that they're being overlooked. I think a lot of people are making them a chic pick to do something special.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Well, mine is just short. My call is short and quick. So, let's just, yeah, no problem. Love the show. Have a good one.
Thanks, Joe. All right, we will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We do have our guy Tyler on the line. Tyler.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hey, Mark. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing just fine. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Roanoke, Virginia.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had an opportunity to call you a few times last football season.
Nice.
Talk about my Hokies, but I took a new job and they worked me like 70 hours a week. So
nice.
I worked and then I hibernated. Didn't have a lot of chance to call in.
Well, I understand that.
Now, my paycheck was healthy though, so that was a nice added plus. Well, let's talk about ACC football. It's August, Mark. It's one of the best times of the year. You know what I mean? And I'm glad it's August. It's just an exciting opportunity to be a college football fan, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, quick note: you were talking about Ohio State, and what's the quarterback, turn receiver, Braxton Miller?
Yes.
I'll never forget when he put that spin move on my D lineman.
Yes.
At Lane Stadium. Broke my heart. We were leading at halftime, but you broke my quarterback's collarbone, and that was that.
Yeah, it was a good game.
It was a good game. It was a good game.
For most of the game. That was a Brewer, right? Was the quarterback?
Michael Brewer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I consider Michael Brewer an unsung hero of Virginia Tech history because he pretty much saved Beamer's legacy just through his toughness and keeping that bowl streak and that winning season alive. But
he was the starter the year before in Columbus, correct?
Yeah, I was at that game. I gotta say, the Ohio State Buckeye fans are great. I mean, we pulled up into one. I forget the lot, but I mean, we were surrounded by Buckeye fans, and they just treated us with so much hospitality.
Nice.
It was nice to go into the record-breaking attendance game and just sack the quarterback with that double bear defense Bud Foster put up. But you got us back the following year. You went on to win the year we beat you, you went on to win national championships. So congrats on that. So, but it is 2022. And so moving forward, let's talk the ACC. I think I already know the answer to your question. I'm going to ask anyways. Is it probably likely that the winner of the Atlantic Division probably wins the ACC?
Probably, but that's not as certain as it was for all those years with Florida State and then Clemson. And we saw that last year, and I think we're going to see it again this year, that there's going to be a better than puncher's chance for the Coastal Division winner.
Yeah, to me, like I said, I'm a Hokie grad, Hokie alum. I love my Hokies. When I look at the Coastal, particularly in Miami, right? Like I want Miami to be good. You know, the whole bargain when the ACC invited Miami and Tech was to be carriers of the football program.
Yep.
You know, like that was the sell point. And we held our end of the deal for the better part of the 2010 or the 2000s but Miami just didn't. And so like as a fan of the Coastal, I want Miami to be good. I want that game to be competitive. In fact, where I live in Roanoke, I go to UVA games. My parents got season tickets, and I go because I want UVA to be good. I tell UVA fans every year, I want you to go 11-1. I want you to go 11-1 every year with that one loss coming to Tech at the end of the season for a nice quality win on our record. But when you look at the Coastal, to me, it's kind of simple. You kind of alluded to this to the previous caller. If Clemson can muster up points, they win the Coastal, or the Atlantic rather. The fact that they had did they go 10-3 or 11-2?
10-3.
10-3. I mean, the only reason they went that far is because their defense was that good. And from what I'm hearing across different commentators like yourself, the Clemson defense is shaping up to be elite, real good, potential number one.
Yep.
And so if they can just muster any points at all, I mean, as an ACC guy, you know the state of the ACC conference. So no one says it out loud, but they secretly root for Clemson, like carry the banner. And the fact that last year, despite a down year, still going 10-3, if they can muster any points, I think not only do they win the ACC, I think they get a chance at a playoff berth because I think that defense is just going to be that good. But if that offense doesn't take, and the thing is they don't have to improve that much. They just got to take a step forward to win that division, I believe. And with the Coastal, a lot of people have Miami winning the Coastal. I'm not a buy into that because you got to run the ball, Mark. And I mean, as Ohio State learned with Michigan, as Virginia learned with Virginia Tech, no matter how good your passing game is, you have to run the ball. And I'm going to pick, I don't know about your preference, but I'm going to pick a team that's got good run game, good defense, and average passing attack against a team that's got a soft defense, no run game, and a high passing attack. What would your preference be? Like, are we in the same school of thought there?
Okay, so you're talking about whether you would rather have a tremendous ground game and an average passing attack versus vice versa.
I'm talking about you have Team A. Team A has a really good run game, a really good defense, an average passing attack, versus a team that's got an elite passing attack, hence Ohio State, hence Virginia. A defense that is, well, Ohio State had better defense than Virginia, but not so good against the rush. And that the offense can't simply run the ball. To me,
that's not Ohio State.
I'm not saying Ohio State. When I talk about Ohio State, Michigan, I watched that game. It was one of my favorite games to watch. I have a lot of friends who went to Michigan. It was an electric game. I wish I could have gone. But I also went to the Virginia Tech UVA game. And again, Brennan Armstrong, I mean, you talked about UVA being a sleeper pick. I mean, I want UVA to succeed. Brennan Armstrong is a stud. Those receivers are studs. Problem is, the O-line doesn't come back. They lose their entire O-line. And their defense was just bad. Just bad. And when I talk about Virginia being the sleeper pick, I mean, they got to come to Virginia Tech to beat Virginia Tech. And they haven't done that since 1998. So Virginia being a sleeper, I don't know. I think to me, when it comes to the Coastal, it's between Pitt and Miami. If Miami can prove that they can run the ball, then I think they win the Coastal. If they cannot run the ball, I don't even think they finish second. Despite the quarterback, despite the passing, if they can't run the ball, I don't think they'll even finish second. Because you got UNC in there. And UNC, that's a tricky pick. You know, they have that really good recruiting over the years. Got 5 stars, got 4 stars. Last year was a disappointment. But what do they do this year? I have no idea. Do they finally take that talent and move it forward? Or is it going to be another letdown despite the talent, despite Mac Brown? I don't know. So my Hokies got to go to UNC this year, and I have that as a win. I'm not bought into UNC. Like when you're talking about UNC, what's your just overall opinion about the program? Because if UNC is gonna be a good football team, that's great. That's better for the division. That'd be great for the conference. But I'm not buying in to the UNC hype. I'm not buying into Mac Brown. But what do you think about UNC this year? Because that could be to me the sleeper would be UNC just because of the talent. But what's your opinion about Mac Brown and that coaching staff and their development? Do you see them really ever reaching their potential? Or is it just a bunch of showmanship, good media marketing, good tricks to hype them up, only for them to never finish first in the Coastal?
Well, I tend to think that people jump to conclusions. People tend to blow out of proportion one year. So people build narratives out of what happened one time. UNC has only failed to meet expectations one time. Like this hasn't been ongoing for years. Mac Brown took over a program that had won 5 games the previous 2 years combined.
Correct.
And he wins a bowl game, goes 7-6, improves the program tremendously in recruiting. Fedora did pretty well in recruiting. Wasn't like the cupboard was bare, but they were recruiting more in the 25 to 30 range, and Mac Brown improved the recruiting significantly, won significantly more the first year. Then the next year, they go 8-3 in the regular season. They almost get to an ACC championship game. They had a difficult schedule. They steamrolled Miami. They barely lose to a top 10 Texas A&M team in the Orange Bowl without both running backs, without 2 receivers. You know, with all that star power, without Chaz Surratt, their best defensive player. And then, last year was a big disappointment. Sam Howell's back, and they're supposed to continue to take an upward trajectory, and they, right out of the gate, boom, as you well know, they get steamrolled by Virginia Tech's defense, and that wasn't even a good defense, but they only scored 10 points, and the whole season unraveled. And so I still think that their program's headed in the right direction.
I hope it is. I hope they able to reach that potential. Like, I don't care who it is. I'm a Hokie guy. I'm an alum. I want the Hokies to be the year in, year out favorite to win the Coastal. But I want to be able to beat good teams to earn that achievement. And if I want UNC to be good, right? So I'm just hoping for UNC that Mac Brown and his staff that they're able to convert. And so, but earlier you said, let me ask you a question. I don't want to. I know you have an ACC. You're talking about the show, about your review, winners and such. So I don't want to ruin it for your future shows. But out of the Coastal, do you have 3 teams with a chance at first? Is it 2? Do you have one outright?
3 that I believe have a legitimate shot, a strong shot, and they're the 3 obvious ones: Pitt, Miami, North Carolina, and I believe that Virginia's got a shot, some kind of strange shot from the outside.
Yeah, because the Coastal eats itself. So
Yeah.
if Virginia can fare better, if Virginia can fare better than the rest, and they do have a shot.
Yeah, that is the history.
To me, my Pitt is Pitt, and I hate to say that because we don't win at Heinz Field. Virginia Tech does. We don't win. I mean, you can look on YouTube the amount of times Tech has gone to Heinz Field as a top 5 team and dropped the deuce. I mean, Heinz Field has just been a curse for Pitt. And I don't like Coach Arduzzi, but I have to respect what he's done there. You know, his team won the conference last year. You got to give the man respect. To me, what Pitt, again, I'm leaning on the fact that, yeah, they lost their top receiver to transfer. They lost their first-round draft back quarterback. But when you take what they can do and you compare it to the rest of the Coastal, they can run the ball, and they got a really good defense.
Yep.
And I just think that wins you more games than having an okay defense, an okay run game, but an elite passing game. Now, if Miami can prove they can run the ball, then I'll pick my vote to Miami. But I'm not. I think I like the hire by Miami. You know, he's from Oregon. They had the term I've heard is guerrilla warfare running. So I mean, if he can run the ball this year, then you know, good for them. I hope that, you know, like, go win the Coastal. But my pick is Pitt, just because they're loaded on defense and they got depth. Their 2s are just as good as their 1s, and I think that's going to keep them in a lot of ball games. If Miami can't run the ball, I don't think they can finish second. And when it comes to my Hokies, you kind of grilled them earlier. You said it was the worst roster you've seen since pre-Beamer, or no, the early days of Beamer. I have to agree with you on the roster, but I think our starting 22, if they stay healthy, I think Tech has a shot, a slim shot, but a shot to win the Coastal. That's not me being an alum. That's not me being biased. Tech's defense 2 years ago was one of the worst. Last year, they were above average. You go get Brent Pry. Tech increased their salary for their coaches by 48%. So that's a lot of money to go out and get quality staff. Now, I don't know if that's going to convert into year 1 success, but Tech can run the ball. They have an above-average defense, and if the ball bounces the right way, and they do good on penalties, they do good on the turnovers, they have a slim shot. But we'll see about my Hokies. I heard you like the Brent Pry hire. What's your just current opinion about not just Virginia Tech football this year, but just the outlook of it all? I mean, Tech right now, they're in the middle of a campaign. And to put this in perspective, in terms of rankings, when you go by,
Yeah, well, we'll move along here pretty quick. But
Yeah.
Brent Pry, so the difficulty in rating or evaluating, ranking a hire when that particular coach has no track record as a head coach. So
True.
Typically everything that's stated in the off season is going to sound good, going to sound great, introductory press conference, all that business. It's all going to sound good about what our values are, how we're going to build our culture and all that business. So at this point, unless he makes any kind of missteps, which I don't believe he has, the only thing you got to go on is how well he's doing on the recruiting path. So that's all that we've looked at. Now, we're going to see here in 3 weeks how good they're going to do on the field compared to and if they win 6 games and get to a bowl game, that's success for me. You know, depending on how competitive they are in those losses, but that's that's pretty much a success. Well, Tyler, I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But you have a good night. I appreciate you, man.
You too. Thank you so much. All right, we'll keep it rolling here, and we got just a couple minutes, so we'll bring back DeAndre.
Hey, Mark, I don't know what happens with the phone, but I'll make it fast. What Dabo was saying in the article is that DJ was magnified because he wasn't playing with that talented of a team. And I was saying that Trevor Lawrence, his freshman year, that he had the most talent to play with. When Deshaun was a sophomore and freshman, and those offensive linemen were freshmen and sophomores, Trevor Lawrence, freshman year, they were seniors and juniors. So he had a more talented team because he had Winfro, Higgins, and Ross, and Travis Christian and Rogers. So he had more of a talented team, and also ETN, the all-time leading rusher in the ACC. Even when we go back to Deshaun Watson's sophomore year, that defense only brought back one starter. They had replaced everybody else. That's when Shaq Lawson and Kurtz and all them guys came along and did pretty well. So I was just saying that DJ had to do it with a less talented team, and I can agree with that. And I think Trevor Lawrence benefited for having such more talent than that his freshman year. And also we got to give some respect to Kelly Bryant. The year that they lost to Alabama, what I was trying to say with that was that the game they lost against Syracuse, and remember that game, they lost. Kelly Bryant didn't play. They were down to their second string kicker, and everybody gives Kelly Bryant a hard time. That Clemson team, as far as ACC quality, was still pretty good, but they needed somebody that could pass the ball. And from what we're hearing about DJ, yes, Kate Cubnat looks very, very good, and he's passed Deshaun Watson. According to Dabo, he's passed Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence at this stage of their career. But like I said, we always talk about, I heard you and I had mentioned it several times, and I heard Jason and what's the other guy name? I can't remember his real name right now. Brian. I heard him mention it too. Yeah, they Clemson guys to stay healthy. And also one thing that's going along with Clemson right now, they moved their right tackle inside to right guard, where Putnam moved into center. So they starting a freshman at right tackle. So they thinking that's going to be approved. I think his name is Mitchell. I'm shocked they wouldn't put Christian Lay in there. I'm very interested to know what's going on with him. I know he redshirted, and Jason has told me plenty of times that he wasn't ready last year because they didn't play his senior year in Virginia. So that's something that I'm really interested to see how he turns out, because I know McFadden is a beast, but I would think you see Nick Saban do it all the time. He'll get players, his good offensive lineman, in to play any position, and then like they get moved over to left tackle. Andre Smith, the guy that got, what's the other guy that got drafted by the Raiders? He got drafted real high last year. He moved from right guard over to left tackle, and he got drafted as a left tackle. Can't remember his name. But I'm looking at Clemson development under Austin. That's going to tell us how good Clemson is. You got to develop that offensive line. If that offensive line can't do nothing for you, we're going to be in some trouble. And you know, we see a lot of shuffling going right now. Like they say, stay healthy. And, you know, you can't do nothing by health. But I think having those three good slot receivers and those two tight ends is going to help the outside game for the ball fights, because the games I showed you versus North Carolina State and Georgia. No, with North Carolina State, it was another game. Now, I showed you teams were playing 3-3-5 and dropping all the safeties back. So they didn't have no room to really throw the ball. So I think Clemson is going to improve in their passing. I think DJ is going to be good because they said the footwork is a lot better.
Good stuff. I appreciate it, DeAndre.
All right, Mark. Take care.
Take care. All right. One more time. Amazon link in the description section. Please use it. If you want to write for us, go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Write for us. Top of the screen. Grab it. Enjoy the content we deliver here at the Voice of College Football. We will have all sorts of previews and predictions continuing through the beginning of the season. Of course, our 24-hour marathon is only, 3 weeks away? Whatever it is, 2 weeks away. And we will have plenty of week 0 coverage. And again, if you would like to, if you're interested in or know of anyone who's interested in post-game hosting, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Any team. I'll just throw it out that way. That's the best way to just blanket coverage. Any team you're interested in post-game hosting or know of anyone who would be a good selection, please contact me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. See you in 5 minutes on the Miami show. And we've got a special debate at the end of the Miami show. You'll want to catch that. See you soon.